Let's talk about AI and language learning. And by AI, I'm largely referring to large language models and generative AI. The truth is, over time, I've become less and less of a supporter of using AI for learning languages. You can probably see the progression of this if you've watched or listened to any of my previous videos mentioning this topic. I have at this point arrived at the conclusion that large language models are not only mostly bad for language learning, they're bad for language in general. So let's start with that. And just to be clear, I'm not going to touch on the environmental aspect of this, although that concerns me a lot, because there's no way AI progression isn't going to happen. Copilot integrated into Microsoft Word tells you it will make everything you write better. Get rid of all those silly little mistakes you make, because we all make tons of them, right? It's basically an old-style grammar checker on steroids. Side note, I never liked those either, for the same reason. Because you know what it also is? It's a vampire sucking the life out of your words. Every time you write something, a part of your personality gets included in the way you express yourself. That personality may not be 100% correct grammar, but it's you. If you use AI to make your message perfect in every way, you completely lose that personality and you get to sound like everyone else who has used the same software to do the same thing. In other words, the word-sucking vampire has made you into a zombie who, in the not too near future, won't be able to string even a few words together without help. You might think this is an exaggeration, but I was listening to something the other day. I wish I could remember where, but I can't because I clearly consume too much media. And they were discussing the fact that a young person who was used to using ChatGPT to write things for them really couldn't think of how to say something in a face-to-face situation. If that doesn't horrify you, it should do. I have heard quite a lot of people talking about the fact that literacy is down and people are losing thinking skills because they're not doing any of it. They're letting ChatGPT do everything for them. And when it comes to living in the real world, they haven't got a clue. And ChatGPT has only been a major thing for the general public for a couple of years. How can this be happening so quickly? What are we doing to ourselves? One of the benefits of learning things like languages is that it helps to keep the brain active and stave off things like dementia. If you're not thinking for yourself, well, I'm sure you can work out what the consequences might be on that score. So let's move on to more specifically talking about AI and learning languages. We know from what I've already said that AI is basically watering down our languages, making everything bland, so it has to be doing the same with the language learning. What it will be teaching us is bland language. We also know from the video I did a couple of months back on the vocabulary suggested by ChatGPT that it's potentially changing language by using what we would consider to be out-of-date words. So it's helping to develop language by taking it back to what it used to be? That's a weird way of doing things, but hey, fashions do come around, I guess. But if you look at it from the other side, it's being vampiric again by potentially sucking the modernity out of language, by preferring the old to the new. This will no doubt be because of the material it has been trained on, although practically all of the internet has been illegally scraped by now. What is happening in real life won't have been. Yet. I'm sure they'll find a way. Do we want language to go backwards? Language is a living thing. It should evolve with living people, not dead AI. Let's think about the less widely spoken languages of the world for a moment. What happens with them? There isn't as much info to scrape. Does that mean your little AI buddy will steer you in even more disastrous directions? Then there's that big old elephant in the room. The fact that AIs often give wrong answers or lie. They're not actually telling lies, of course. They are, as it has become known, hallucinating, because although they might seem to be conscious, they're not. But that doesn't alter the damage they may be doing. If an AI can be convincing enough that people in law firms believe the cases it makes up, you'd better believe that you can be fooled if it makes up something about a foreign language. And if you go into your favourite search engine to find out if something that an AI has told you is fact, you'll get another AI summarising things for you. Perfect. What could possibly go wrong? Of course, all the language learning apps are lapping it up. Yes, they've always had some kind of computer learning to deliver their products. They wouldn't exist without that. But now it's going into overdrive. And yes, they are using it in a specialised way, with hopefully people tweaking it to be better at foreign language content. Am I kidding myself thinking that? A couple of months back, there was a big to-do about Duolingo stating that it was moving over to using AI rather than people to run the app. I never saw the actual post or posts they put out because I haven't used social media now for over 5 years. You should try it. It's much better. Anyway, there was apparently a huge backlash against this and they deleted all content from their social media accounts. That doesn't mean they changed their policies though, does it? Now, AI are in charge. Great. How will we be able to trust anything Duolingo serves up in the future? And let's not just pick on Duo, because I've opened up other apps and they all have a little AI bot living in them somewhere. In fact, everything does. And most services don't allow you to use the product without that present, which annoys me so much I should probably get off that hobby horse right now, or we'll be going down a very big rabbit hole. The trouble with AI translation of foreign language sentences is that they don't sound like natural language in English, which makes me worry about what I'm being served up in the language I'm learning. Does that sentence sound weird to someone for whom that is their mother tongue? Probably. People need to be involved in these apps and checking that the AI functions are working in a way that's good for language learning, not removing as many people as they can and running the service on a skeleton crew. Please don't make us have to go back to learning without apps. But language learning apps aren't the only problem. What about the other things we use to learn languages? Like books. Yeah, translation is another whole issue about to explode. Let's start with AI translation and narration of audiobooks. Audible have announced that, as well as having AI narration available to authors, they are working on and will soon have a beta of translation services for your audiobooks by AI into a handful of languages to start with, but eventually expanding that out so that everyone can read every book. For a start, why do we need all books to be available in all languages? Really? There are more than enough books already to satiate anyone's reading desires in each language, and new ones are being published every day by people who actually speak the language. This is unlikely to bring worldwide recognition to your average author, and the bestsellers are already in any languages the publishers think are viable for the book. It's pretty pointless, because most people will never see your book. But let's pretend that that's a good thing. AI translation? I used Microsoft's translation tool within Word to help me when I'm writing, mainly for checking. It isn't a full-on Copilot as such, as I have that disabled, but it is most certainly some kind of AI system. When it translates text, it gives the most common type of phrase, or the most common meaning for what you have written. For example, if I've written something which I know is correct because it's a phrase I got from a book, which may well be colloquial, the translator will often change it to something it knows, even though I know what I have is correct. I have enough knowledge to know what is potentially good and what is almost certainly bad, most of the time. And I always double and triple check things that any algorithmic system has suggested to me unless I have seen it before. That happens a fair bit, Something will be suggested instead of what I have written that I've actually seen before, and in some cases it is better and I change it. But in many cases it's simply an alternative, and I don't. When it translates into English from a gendered language, it might get the gender right in a sentence where that is clearly shown. But as soon as you're on to the next sentence or even a subordinate phrase with no personal pronouns, it is likely to default back to male gender, because that's the standard. It also seems incapable of determining when you're saying it rather than he or she. I'm not saying it's all bad, but it's definitely not all good. A bad translation can change the tone of your words completely. It will miss the subtleties. That is a disaster for a creative work. Remember I talked about voice earlier? Voice is everything in a creative work. It is your unique way of writing and incorporates your personality and how you see the world. It's the way you use words, the type of words you use, and so many other things. An AI, or should I say a generalized AI, which this is, that's serving anyone and everyone, is unlikely to be able to mimic your voice well. A personalized AI, where you have given it all your creative works to ingest, can at least make an attempt at your writing voice, because it has nothing else to confuse it. Still not a good idea, in my opinion, but a better option. There will apparently be an option for people to have the translation checked by a linguist. As I said previously, this should be done by a professional translator, someone who is used to translating creative works. A linguist without that experience may be able to make sure there are no errors, but do they have the creative flair to make it sound good? Probably not. All these AI translations should be checked by a translator who is a native speaker of the language. Otherwise, this will end up being a disastrous experiment. But honestly, how many professional translators will just want to check an AI's output? That doesn't sound like a very satisfying job to me, when they could do so much more. And where is the incentive to make it into a good translation rather than just something that's technically correct? What they'll be paid is bound to be way less than if they started from scratch with a proper commission. But as I've already mentioned, this AI service isn't just about words on the page, it's about an AI voice, potentially an AI voice imitating yours, narrating the book. So let's change the target and talk again about where else your voice might be used, starting with YouTube's dubbing option. So, books where the text is already there being translated is one thing. At least the base the AI is working from is solid. A video where there's no creator uploaded subtitles in their own language is going to be so littered with errors it's ridiculous. First, it'll take what it thinks you're saying and put it into your language. There will be errors where it cannot hear what you're saying or doesn't quite get your accent. And let's not even talk about proper names. Okay, let's. They are rarely correct. Sometimes the system tries to fit the sounds to other words and comes up with really weird results. This concoction of errors will be its very not solid base. And this is what it will use to translate into another language, which once again it'll probably make a few errors in, which the creator, who doesn't understand the language, most likely will not be able to correct. What a mess. YouTube only suggests that people might want to get the translation checked. If this survives as a thing going forwards, and why wouldn't it when Google's Gemini is almost certainly in the mix, it should be restricted to videos where the creator has submitted a correct subtitle file in the original language. Anything else is madness. Even a clunky translation will at least be saying the correct thing. Use auto-dubbed videos for your language learning at your peril. If they haven't been checked, it is unlikely to end well. And the whole in your speaking voice thing. Why? Why steal everyone's voice and ingest it into your system? I mean, what could that possibly be used for? Bad actors are already stealing people's voices. Why does YouTube need to get in on the act? But that's not the only looming voice stealing scenario. Another thing I talked about in last month's podcast was real-time translation in a person's voice. I said I thought it was just around the corner, and in between recording that video and it being published, that became a real thing. I'm not sure it's available to everyone yet, but it exists. From the demo I saw, 2 people had to be logged into the system for it to work, so I guess that's you giving permission for it to happen. And it wasn't that you couldn't hear the other person actually talking in their own language, it was a slightly delayed reaction translation, like when you hear something being interpreted by a human on the news. What I didn't see was the potential for someone having something translated that they were simply listening to or watching. That would be a one-way interaction, or contract, if you will. The person being translated would have no agency. Is that possible with this system? And even if it is, how long before someone creates that? It's basically the same technology. Going back to newscast interpreting, would news channels be confident enough to use this kind of one-way service? How could you be sure it wouldn't screw up in some way? I mean, how many ways could it screw up? Wrong language, wrong voice, misunderstanding something so badly it's embarrassing. A lot of things that are on the news are not necessarily very clear speech, either because of the person's accent or the location noise. But with TV having to scale back costs because so many fewer people watch it these days, they may have to resort to this rather than someone doing live interpreting. I really hope they don't. But the same goes for using this personally or in a business meeting. How can you guarantee that what's being given as the translation is actually correct? And what happens if it isn't? What disclaimers will the service have so that they aren't sued? If you have a speaker of the language present to make sure it's correct, I don't know, maybe you could just use them instead. But AI is not all bad in all contexts. It's pretty universally agreed that spaced repetition is a good way to learn languages. What better than an AI system to work out the intervals at which words should be introduced and reintroduced to get the optimal result? An AI can also monitor how you're doing quite easily and be responsive to every person's particular needs in this respect, and can teach them at the speed and the level that is appropriate. Chatting with a bot could help someone to get over the barrier of speaking in a foreign language without being embarrassed at their inadequacies with the language, as long as they don't impart a ton of personal information to the chatbot which could be ingested by the system. Also, apps are available at all times of day and night, unlike humans, who need to sleep. And when the learning resources are free, they give access to many people who might not have been able to learn a language otherwise. There is very little chance of us being able to stop the AI revolution. I don't want AI in everything. I really don't. I want to be able to turn it off. But I mostly can't. If nothing else, I hope we're given that option in the coming months and years. But the content people have used to create AI has already been stolen, and there's no way we're going to be able to take it back. Some are now paying to license content, which is good, but many aren't. The law just cannot keep up with the progress. I guess the main thing we have to remember is that AI are not people. They are learning from us, from what we put into the services we use, and they are basically using maths to work out the correct response. They are making predictions, not giving definitive answers. They may also have biases because of the content they've been trained on, which I guess would be most apparent if using a chatbot. But as language learners, we do have to be aware of the problems with all AI-generated language content, whether that be the sentences we are given to practice on or the translated content we might read or listen to. Authentic content created by actual speakers of the language will always be better, but it's going to get more and more difficult to determine what that is. And I'm pretty sure all of us are going to trip up with that at some point. And that does make me feel sad.